Hello, you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. I'm Askar Sherelief and these are the top stories. From words to action, following President's advice, the financial police tighten its anti-corruption efforts. Another eternal leader, members of the Writers' Union complained to Nazarbayev about ambitions of their chairman. The financial police launched a new round of its struggle against corruption. Just recently, President Nazarbayev said the fight against it will be tough, but the officers already report about new victories. Financial policemen presented the press with an entire list of fallen bribers while revealing that most officials were under surveillance for quite some time already.
On Tuesday, President Nursultan Nazarbayev met with the head of the financial police, Kairat Kojamzharov, to inform him about the new methods of anti-corruption campaign.
I
warned before that the fight will be tough. We need to finish it despite of all sorts of insinuations and provocations, which aim to pit the law enforcement agencies against each other and cause distrust towards them. Apparently, the word of the president kills corruption outright, and reporters were presented with a new case of the Vice Minister of Information and Communication, Nuray Urazov. The official attempted to poke $170,000 allocated for the publishing of Shohan Walikhanov's collected works and an encyclopedia as part of the Cultural Heritage Project. The publication of these works resumed only after the intervention of the financial police. The criminal case with the indictment was already sent to the prosecution office. The case of the former health minister Jakselik Doskaliyev was also mentioned during the talks, as it has already become a symbol of the struggle against the corruption hydra. By now, 2 additional criminal cases were instigated against Doskaliyev. The accusations over the embezzlement of state assets and the feigning of a stroke were added to the existing charges over power abuse. Doskaliyev still refuses to cooperate with the investigation. Nevertheless, it is unlikely that anyone can deny that all recent developments do look like a real anti-corruption campaign.
While the financial police are busy improving the anti-corruption statistics, leaders of the public movement Leave Housing to People propose to dismiss the heads of the National Bank and Financial Market Regulation Agency Grigory Marchenko and Yelena Bakhmutova. This and other demands were made by the movement activists on November 12 during the roundtable on the regulation of the country's financial and credit markets. 5 days later, the idea solidified in the form of a lawsuit filed by the movement against the Financial Supervision Agency.
Movement activists filed a suit against the Financial Supervision Agency because decisions and resolutions of the organization contradict Kazakhstan's civil code. People claim that the agency has lost control over the financial situation in the country and now only lobbies the interests of bankers and legalizes concealed incomes. Otherwise, it is hard to explain the FSA's indifference to all appeals for help from thousands of defrauded investors. They do not want to admit their mistakes. We filed a suit to a district court, but if needed, we will reach the president and then an international court. So far, though, banks win. 2 years ago, a mother of 4, Kamal Uskinbayeva, took out $48,000 in a mortgage loan. Unfortunately, she lost her job after repaying only $11,000. The woman asked to defer the payments, but instead was threatened with the confiscation of her only apartment and was also invited to the court. The bank now seeks to return $64,000. We're not economists, so we don't understand everything. It is all the fault of the bankers who simply use people's illiteracy. I believe there are many people like that. The National Bank chairman, Grigory Marchenko, redirects all blame towards the second-tier banks back to mortgages. After all, they did sign the agreements. In general, the chief banker doesn't consider the problem of several thousand citizens worthy of his attention. There are only about 1,000 citizens that experience problems in Almaty and Astana, but this is not an issue for the entire country. At the G20 summit in Korea, where the key issue discussed was the control of the financial sector, Kazakhstan was placed on the list of the most unstable countries in the world in this regard. Currently, almost a third of the country's population, including regular people and small businesses, is dealing with banks one way or another.
On Wednesday, residents of problematic Almaty suburbs Bakay and Akbulak presented a new book documenting their communication with the city administration and ruling party. The book is appropriately titled One Lord Ordeal in the Land of Nurata. The collection as proof of the authorities' unwillingness to cooperate with residents of problematic suburbs will be presented to the international community during the upcoming OSCE summit.
Unauthorized developers of the problematic suburbs Bakay and Akbulak in the Alatau district of Almaty have published a book. The volume, titled "One Long Ordeal in the Land of Norata," chronicles the entire conflict and almost a year-long correspondence between the local residents and officials. In desperation, people decided to write a book after their letter was ignored by the head of state. Supposedly, this is the only way to let the public know about demolitions and beatings. What are we dealing with? The legal ignorance of the presidential administration or the torturous techniques to make fun of people? We have already appealed to the very top, and we have nowhere else to go in this country. This is not the only unique way of political protest. All rallies unsanctioned by the authorities are banned in the country. By announcing their intention to protest against something, people always risk ending up behind bars. Thus they have to resort to creativity. Organizers of many actions are forced to camouflage their messages to the authorities. I sacrificed my foreskin in the name of the nation's leader and call everyone to do the same. The growing number of creative protest actions is also confirmed by the members of the Human Rights Bureau, although they note that people are prosecuted even when are thinking outside the box. The main question is the essence of the protest. If I will write a manual for growing flowers and say that it's a protest action against the political regime, I will be imprisoned the next day. Seriously. The hardback written by residents of Bakay and Akbulak suburbs was presented to journalists as a textbook for those who want to learn about the corruption in the country. The main presentation is planned for the OSCE summit in December, when 56 copies of the book will be published, one for each head of the organization's member states who will be present in Astana.
Members of the Writers' Union appealed to the nation's leader Nursultan Nazarbayev, asking him to change the intention of Nurlan Orazalin. The latter wants to become the leader of their country's writers with the title of the honorary chairman. This will allow him to manage the organization's finances even after his retirement from the post assumed some 12 years ago. Those opposing the manifestation of absolutism in the union note that the drama of the leader not leaving his office has been made into a classic it is now by the president himself.
The word of the conflict within the Writers' Union has reached President Nazarbayev. On Tuesday, playwright Dulat Isabekov informed the leader's nation that the incumbent head of the union, Nurlan Orazalin, rewrote the charter in his own favor. After 3 terms, he now holds the title of an honorable chairman, which practically makes him an eternal leader of the union. I told him that we need a younger person as the head, someone in his 40s. He asked if I just want to replace him, which I don't, since I'm already 67. No, we need someone younger. The new status gives Orazalin the right to manage finances even after his retirement, as well as the opportunity to veto decisions of the subsequent leadership. This outraged his colleagues. Around 30 people wrote an appeal to President Nazarbayev, asking him to stop the changes of the charter. Writer Timirkhan Medetbek even compared the Writers' Union with the ruling party and its head with the president of the country. Another union member, Gerard Belger, also sees these allusions. I cannot say whether our union head Nurlan Orazalin is trying to copy the president, but there might be some influence, and it seems that many other minor leaders are also trying to imitate the process. Dulat Isabayev says that Elbasi, the leader of the nation, doesn't support the imitation. The president opposed the perpetuation of the chairman's status within the Writers' Union and promised to resolve the situation. Perhaps that is why Orazalin refuses to meet with the press for already several days. When can we talk to him? He's busy right now. In the end, Orazalin was reached over the phone and said that he is not desperate to remain on his post while the regional status is not his idea. This decision was made during the Writers' Congress, and that is where they should have expressed their disagreement. Thus, questioning that decision now is just a verbiage. Apparently, no one expected the involvement of the head of state, but by intervening, the president found himself in an interesting situation. On the one hand, he hardly likes the initiative of the current Writers' Union head, and on the other, it is likely he is not comfortable with banning the status of the honorable chairman, since he himself already set an appropriate example and precedent.
On Wednesday, offices of the Human Rights Bureau across Kazakhstan hosted briefings on the preparation of the alternative conference of NGOs scheduled to coincide with the official OSCE summit in Astana. The idea of the event came from the prominent human rights activist Evgeny Zhovtis, currently serving his term in an Ust-Kamenogorsk prison settlement. Many observers believe the trial over Zhovtis was unfair, and he was sent away specifically not to raise issues about Kazakhstan's questionable policies during the summit.
An alternative conference is held for the first time in the history of the OSCE. It is organized by 20 international organizations with the main focus on representatives from the CIS, as well as Human Rights Watch and Freedom House. Kazakh experts believe that the world needs to know not only about the view of the situation in Kazakhstan, but also an alternative opinion. I think that you can see the extent of interest in the number of international journalists. Already now we're asked for comments and interviews about the alternative view, as opposed to the official opinion. The attempts to sabotage the alternative summit of NGOs began immediately after the announcement of its preparation, say organizers. Hotels were told not to book rooms for participants of the event, while state officials and pro-governmental public activists made statements about its pointless nature. In addition, the Civic Alliance, composed mostly of NGOs that receive state grants, announced yet another alternative conference in Almaty, scheduled for the same dates as the one in Astana. Public activists claim this is a distraction and condemn the overly loyal counterparts. After all, the international experience of state cooperation with NGOs was simply ignored in Kazakhstan. In the West, they have a working system and strict control. NGOs that accept state money can still express criticism, whereas in Kazakhstan, state-funded NGOs almost never criticize the system. The organizers of an alternative conference plan to raise the issues of protection against torture, freedom of assembly and movement, the situation with the persecution of human rights activists, and the effectiveness of policies in dealing with humanitarian crises. However, some observers believe that without its author, this interesting idea of Evgeny Zhovtis has undergone significant changes. It is impossible to prepare for such large-scale events in just a couple of months. Unfortunately, it looks like they just want to be noted for their presence and nothing else. All participants of the alternative conference will also have to register for the OSCE review conference. This will allow them to enter the closed city and get a hotel room. To date, over 100 NGOs expressed their interest in the event. The registration deadline is November 19th, but the organizers are still not confident everything will go smoothly and as planned. Perhaps this is why no announcement of backup plans has been made so far.
More than 100 students of the Kazakh National University in Almaty were seen today partaking in a peculiar activity. For 20 minutes, they practiced forming letters OSCE with their bodies while shouting Kazakhstan OSCE 2012. Find out why from the next story.
The action was timed specifically to support the Kazakhstan's OSCE chairmanship. It aims to show that the young generation didn't forget about the politics, follows it, and supports this initiative. Of course, it is dedicated to the Asian Winter Games. We are prepared to welcome foreign athletes. Everything is timed for the Asian Games and the OSCE summit. That is why the city administration organized this event and gathered us together. The city administration staff said the action was initiated by students of the Kazakh National University to support the president of the country. The best prepared students told reporters about the achievements of Kazakhstan during the OSCE chairmanship. Others were confused over the specific purpose of the action, not knowing whether it was about the Asian Games, World Youth Day or the OSCE summit in Astana. The absence of law enforcement during the event confirmed that it was indeed planned by the city administration and the youth wing of the ruling party Jasatan. It could be convenient for the media to film the event from above. They could climb Mariot or Koktube, but our guys out there would just freeze. They only wear t-shirts even though it is quite cold today despite the sun.
These were all the major news for November 17, 2010. Join us tomorrow for more. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.